You take the wins when you can get them. And you try not to let the losses throw you too far off track.
There's a new hot doctor in town, and Stella learns some big life lessons. Let's break down episode 3 of Life Sentence right here on What Happened. Well, hello there, Lisa here, and welcome back to another recap of the CW's latest show, Life Sentence. So I gotta say, this was actually a really fun episode, and we saw a lot of our characters overcoming some big obstacles in their lives, so let's go ahead and just get started. First up, we have Wes and Ida. So Diego is trying to get someone to babysit the kids so he can go visit Lizzie at her writer's retreat, but no one wants to do it. Ida says no, and eventually Wes and Stella give in. When Diego drops the kids off, Wes is thrown off when Diego calls Ida mom. It seems like Wes definitely has some mommy issues. His mom was not very emotional and pretty hard on Wes. Now when Fiona gets sick, Wes isn't sure what to do because Lizzie and Diego aren't returning his calls, so one person shows up to the rescue, Ida. She takes control and gets Fiona to bed, and everything seems okay. Wes is relieved, and when Diego finally calls, Wes gives him the good news. Diego, however, says it was a bad idea to call Ida because she overreacts when the kids are sick. Wes thinks that Diego is joking, but then Ida runs in thinking that Fiona's 101 fever is bad and she needs to be taken to urgent care. She continues to overreact, and Wes says that she's being irrational, and then Ida finally realizes it when she says Stella's name instead of Fiona's. She eventually calms down and tells Wes how she feels guilty for dismissing the time Stella told her she was sick when she was 15. Ida didn't take Stella to the doctor until a month later, and by then, we obviously know what happened. Wes comforts Ida, they bond, and Diego calls, and Wes ends up calling Ida Mum. Not Mom, Mum. It's a really cute time to see Ida and Wes bond, and I feel like Wes is now starting to become part of the family. As for Aiden and Peter, they're trying to get their groove back, and I have to say apologies because last recap I kept calling Stella's dad Paul because I hadn't heard his name actually said much except for Dad, so I had to look it up on IMDb, and there it says Paul, but it turns out it is indeed Peter. Anyway, the new owners have allowed Peter and Aiden to live in the guest house, and Peter just can't move on, so he basically watches the new owners' every move, and it's kind of creepy. It's getting so bad that Aiden asks Stella for money and advice, and she suggests he take Peter out for a guy's night. Aiden does convince Peter to go out, and they end up at a bar at a nice hotel where Aiden tries to go all Ryan Gosling to Peter's Steve Carell and give him tips on picking up women. Eventually though, Peter just calls it quits, but before he goes, we get the father-son bonding moment we've kind of been waiting for this whole season, even though it's been 2 episodes. Peter tells Aiden thanks, and it was great because he got to spend time with his son. The last time Aiden asked Peter to hang out was when he was like 12 at a baseball game, and Peter says that was like the best night of his life. He says the next time they can just do something simple like just hang out and have a beer. And we all know that this is something Aiden's definitely been needing to hear. Just as we think Peter's chances at love, though, are over, he starts talking to the hotel concierge Lauren outside, and they're both trying to get phone reception and wait for Ubers. They start sharing war stories about their divorce, and one thing leads to another, and Peter ends up having to use that tie Aiden made him leave at home, and he puts it on his bedroom door handle, if you know what I mean. Well, things then get awkward when Aiden returns home and Lauren comes out of Peter's room, and surprise, Aiden and Lauren know each other. Yeah, it looks like this father-son duo have something else in common, and things are about to get super awkward. Also, I gotta say, I smiled a little bit when I saw Lauren appear on screen because she's played by Brie Blair, who I actually used to watch as a kid because she starred in the movie version of The Babysitter's Club. So that's your random fact for the day. The last thing to talk about is Stella and the hot new doctor in town, which of course is setting the show up for another love triangle. Stella now volunteers at the hospital and she wants to make a difference, but she's just assigned to cleaning stuff. She's painting the girl we met earlier, Sadie's nails, when the hot new oncologist on the floor is mentioned again, and what do you know? Dr. Will Grant appears out of nowhere perfectly lit like an angel. And high five if you just got that motocross reference there. Riley Smith, still looking good. Stella and Sadie go back to talking about cures, and Stella thinks maybe Sadie can do the same trial she did, so she sets out on a mission to fight for Sadie, since it doesn't seem like there's anyone in Sadie's family fighting for her like Stella had her family. Sadie asks Miss French, who got her into her trial, about the trial, but Miss French says funding was pulled by the donor, but the donor was anonymous, so she can't help Stella with any information. Sadie then asks Stella how it went, and for the first time, Stella realizes why everyone always lied to her and gave her good news, so she lies to Sadie in the same way. Stella then bugs head nurse Jill for information about the trial, and she gets the intel she needs. She breaks into Miss French's filing cabinet and finds the file, but is indeed caught by Dr. Grant. Since Stella is obviously a horrible liar and she word vomits when she gets nervous, she spills everything to Dr. Grant about her plan and what she's doing. Turns out that Dr. Grant knows the donor, Roger Shaw, and Roger is actually having having an opening for his new bar at his fancy hotel that night, so they agree to go together to try to work Roger for some money. Dr. Grant and Stella end up running into Aiden and Peter at the bar, and then Dr. Grant keeps getting calls from the hospital that interrupt their conversation. The night goes on, and Dr. Grant and Stella argue because they don't really see eye to eye on things. Stella's obviously more compassionate, and she thinks Dr. Grant is heartless, especially with the way he's talking about his patients on the phone. He ends up having to run back to the hospital for a patient, so Stella's on her own in her mission to locate Roger Shaw. She goes to get some liquid courage and there starts word vomiting again to the guy behind the bar, who she obviously thinks is the bartender, but obviously she should have realized that he was dressed way too nice to be a bartender. Stella explains how she's there to ask the hotel owner for money and why she needs the money, and he all of a sudden says that, maybe the money from that trial was pulled because clinical trials have to present a standard rate of repetition, and the one that she's talking about couldn't. She takes a minute, and it finally dawns on her that that guy behind the bar is none other than Roger Shaw. He starts to then walk away, and she blabbers again and finally says that the trial was effective and she's proof. She then spills to him all about Sadie and gives this moving speech, and he agrees to put the money back into the trial if they can repeat the results that she got, because as it turns out, Stella was the only survivor of the trial. Now the money, though, it'll take a year or two to kick back in. This all shocks Stella, and she realizes just how tough things are. She ends up seeking advice from Aiden, and who would have thunk that this guy would actually be full of good advice. Stella always thought it was easy for Mom and Dad when they fought for her, but Aiden fills her in on the harsh realities of what they all actually went through, which included her dad actually begging to get her on the trial. Aiden tells Stella it's a tough road, but it's worth it, and she just has to learn that not everything is a happy ending, and sometimes you go through a lot of hurt, but that's life. And I feel like there's always a life lesson in each one of these episodes. Stella now understands why Dr. Grant detaches himself from his patients, so she goes back to the hospital to apologize, and it turns out he's alone in a room because he lost his patient. She apologizes for everything that happened earlier, and he then opens up explaining how hard it is when he loses patients because he lost his brother, and he sees his brother in every patient. She then asks how he gets through it, and he says he just takes the wins when he can, and he doesn't let the losses throw him too far off track. And he doesn't forget the reason he wants to help people. Stella is now rejuvenated, and the next day she tells Sadie the truth, but cheers her up because she and Dr. Grant have submitted Sadie for 17 other trials. Stella then starts messing with the air vents, which is something cute that Aiden said previously Ida used to do. Dr. Grant then follows Stella after she leaves and says that they got themselves a little win. Stella then mentions how she has to go meet her husband and that they've been together for 6 months. Then Dr. Grant says he wishes he could have met her 7 months ago, which obviously throws Stella off. Then Wes shows up, but we are of course setting up for a love triangle of sorts here because, this is the CW after all. And that wraps up episode 3 of Life Sentence. Of the 3 episodes, this one is my favorite so far, which I think is a good thing. It means that the show is progressing. It's going to get better throughout the season. We're also finally getting character growth, and while at times the show can feel preachy, it does give you some things to think about. It was also nice to finally see a different side of Aiden, and also this awkward love triangle that's going to happen with Lauren. I think it's now even more obvious just how out of touch Peter and Aiden were, that, Peter didn't even know who Aiden's girlfriends were, because it does seem like Lauren was more than just a random hookup for Aiden. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see just how dramatic that all gets. But let's watch the promo for the next episode.
What do I need to apply for the manager position?
Pretty much just one good arm and a high school diploma.
Are you saying that I didn't graduate from high school?
No, you're saying that, but I am not disagreeing with you.
I cannot believe that Mom and Dad lied to me about this too.
Why did you forge my high school diploma?
I need another beer. You want one?
It's 10 a.m.
I know, I can tell time. I graduated.
Alright y'all, it's that time to hit up the comments and leave your thoughts on this episode. What do you like about the show so far, and what do you think needs some improvement? Which character is your favorite? Let me know, then you can click right over here for this week's juicy Riverdale recap or my interview with Bella Thorne and Patrick Schwarzenegger for their new movie Midnight Sun. If you like what you see, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe, and my name's Lisa. I'll see you guys real soon.